Hey, story lovers, welcome back to Our Only Thing. We know it's been a while, but with you, it feels like we can always just pick up where we left off. Speaking of long times, this week we're talking about 28 years later. Is there a name for this subgenre where it's like infected people, but it's very clearly in that same sort of vein of zombie horror?
I'm calling it zombie-esque. I'm sure that our fans can come up with something better, and I'd love to see that. Most people just refer to it as a zombie film. And then when you say to them, well, technically, and they agree with you, a lot of times they just jump in. They say, I know it's not a zombie film, but it is classified that way.
When I talk about it to people that haven't seen it yet, the way I like to explain it is it feels like the first time you saw the first film, where again, I don't know if it's redefining the genre quite as much as the first one did, but it's playing in that subgenre in a way we haven't seen before and approaching ideas around what it means to have an infected pandemic like that. Like, what does that do to humanity? Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen this subgenre approach it quite so thoroughly and in a meaningful way. The importance of recognizing that the infected are still people. They're still humans, and they deserve the respect that humans should have when they are afflicted by something, and even when not. We've only seen it in the zombie genre where it's in that sort of individual level where a loved one gets infected, gets bitten, and you're not ready to let them go. And you might have, some third party saying,
look, Lizzie, she's going to change. You know I'm right. And when she does, she'll come back and she'll kill all of us.
And that's as far as it ever goes, right? It never gets into, well, that's still the person, even if they're gone and it's not them anymore. That was still them, and we need to honor that and remember that and not treat them like animals.
Let's get into Act 1 then, Pablo, because Act 1 really comes across like a video game. As I was watching it, I thought, damn, I'd love to play this, especially when the alpha starts chasing them. We have Jamie, who's this middle-aged character. He's a father, and Spike is 12, and Spike is participating in this coming-of-age ceremony where when you get to a certain age, you have to kill an infected.
And he has not reached that age, by the way.
They go across this causeway that allows them to get to the mainland where the infected are. And to your point, there is a female character who is in charge of the gate. And she says to Jamie, I'm not really comfortable with this because your son should be at least 14, 15. So right there's kind of this inkling, is it Jamie that is pushing his son to do this? It's not quite what it should be. And I do think it's an important thing to bring up because it does establish that maybe Spike's not ready for this ceremony. And we learn that very quickly as they get over into the mainland and start experiencing the infected. It's classic Danny Boyle, where it starts off very slow because he loves to build. He loves slow burns. And we see what I'm calling a ground dweller. And Jamie is explaining to Spike all these things. So there's a ton of exposition in like the first 10, 15 minutes, but it's done in the right way through kind of reminding Spike the lessons that he should be keeping in mind as he's on this journey, this video game journey. So he ends up killing the ground dweller / bloater, not from Last of Us. He ends up getting a good shot in the neck.
When the arrow impacts are happening, the way it does kind of like that shift, like that sort of like 360 shift around the moment.
Yes.
That when you say it felt like video game-esque, like I see it in that moment where you're kind of capturing it from a different, I guess it's like to kind of almost commemorate the moment of taking that life of the infected, right?
Yes.
What a cool visual that is. I don't think I've ever seen that before in zombie films.
It does highlight the rite of passage that he's achieved this kill. I guess now he's a man. That's kind of how I interpreted it to that village that they live in.
That's how they're treating it for sure.
That he's taken out an animal because they do look at them as animals. But from there, it goes to hell in a handbasket because then they come across an alpha.
the alpha is like a mutated version of just a typical rage infected, what you would expect would happen 28 years later after some time spent. And we're not really kind of privy to what that evolution is or that mutation is of why. But the alpha are essentially like these giant, like picture like a 6'5" dude that's just all muscle bound, and they also dwell quite a bit on his penis is like a giant, like just swinging around thing.
He's well endowed.
And it's to the point where even Jamie is afraid of an alpha, despite like
Yeah.
all of the bravado. The alpha you do not fuck with. Like you run from the alpha. You run from the alpha. You just don't even engage.
And then a whole bunch of runners come after him. They have to go into this dilapidated building, and they are in this abandoned house, and there are runners coming in, and they're trying to shoot them. And the thing is, under pressure, Spike's not great, right? Because this is his first adventure. So he's missing. His dad's telling him to, take deep breaths and be as calm as you can. I don't know how anyone could be calm in that situation, but his dad had to step in a couple of times when Spike froze. So they end up going to this attic, and they hang out in the attic for many hours until the building starts collapsing.
At this point in their journey, like after the house crumbles down on them, they're trying to get back. They're kind of taking a chance because the causeway is still not quite low tide yet, not quite high tide. Just it's slowing them down a bit, but it's enough for them to get through. So the alpha basically has given them a running start and is still walking them. He's still chasing them down and is about to get them when they are essentially saved by the guard.
Up until that moment when that door opens, like you're not quite sure if they're going to make it. Even though Danny Boyle is doing something classic, he is cutting back and forth between the victory celebration, between the alpha chasing them, and you're discombobulated in the way that they would be.
That is probably, in this film, the most thrilling moment, I think. This is the scene for me that kind of lives up to that opening sequence of 28 Weeks Later, whereas I don't think that the first scene of this film lives up to that.
This is a glorious day, a day of judgment.
The other thing about the alpha, so there's two that we meet, and the second one Dr. Kelson refers to as Samson.
And the implication there, we see that there is such a thing as a pregnant infected, which is new to the franchise, to the series. We've never seen that before. I don't know if that's ever been in zombie film lore at all, or infected film lore. I don't know if we've ever seen that at all.
The only pregnancy I can think of is the Dawn of the Dead remake, where she was already pregnant. And then when she got bit,
we get the flip here, which is interesting. The implication here is probably that the alphas are SAing some of the women infected and impregnating them. Like, how horrifying is that even in infected state, you're having that sort of thing happen among the population because of a big alpha dude?
It's possible that she was pregnant and then got turned, but by the way that it was shot, by the way that Jason Momoa Alpha chases Spike and his mom, it really seemed like he wanted the baby because the baby was his.
But the result of what happens makes me second guess that, because the moment the baby is born, and to clarify, the baby is born uninfected because the placenta, I assume, clears any sign of infection during birth. The mother lunges as if she's going to kill the baby, which is to be expected by, an infected that has no sort of conscience or any sort of understanding of anything aside from kill. So, I would think then that the father is probably going to do the same thing, but we are told that the alphas have heightened intelligence. So that would be the only factor where I think, okay, maybe he's aware that, that's his progeny. He needs to protect it. But then where does it go from there?
How do you infect a baby and then expect to take care of it?
Right.
Dr. Kelson brings this up. Baby needs milk.
Yeah, you're getting at it. Starvation, like how quickly the infected starve. I believe the beginning of 28 Weeks Later, they mentioned that starvation happens in 5 weeks.
Yes. So we've talked about the bloater slash ground dweller. We've talked a little bit more about the alpha, but then the rest of them have become hunters versus just running full force like we saw in the first two movies. They're being smarter about exerting energy.
There's certainly an implication of like hunter and gatherer as well, because we
Yes.
do see at one point almost like a community of them washing themselves in a river or in
Yes.
a little creek. That's when we first see the impregnated infected.
Correct.
So yeah, there's a bit of an organizational thing happening amongst them after all this time, which I mean, you would even see that among animals, and there's a lot of implication, at least from the village's perspective that they are animals, but thematically we're supposed to still start to see them more as humans.
Which is really what Act 2 and 3 are about. But I do think establishing that they have wolf-like tendencies, dog pack, that is to hit home the animal vibe. And then we see them naked for the first time in the franchise too, which I really enjoyed because it hit home the primal instinct of just survival.
Fun fact, all of the nudity in this film was prosthetics
I figured.
because they had a child actor on set, so they had to use prosthetics for legal reasons.
Did they borrow Mark Wahlberg's prosthetic from Boogie Nights?
I'm not going to say that I'm an expert and that, I've examined photographs or anything, but it was exactly like it.
It was very similar. I thought Mark Wahlberg took that.
Pretty weird, but actually is the only prop that I've ever kept from a movie.
So maybe, he might have loaned it.
Yeah, they might have borrowed it from him.
When Spike and Jamie get home, there's a big celebration because Spike has gotten his first kill, and his dad is telling a lie about how Spike is basically this hero, but in reality, Spike was very afraid. And then we get to see Jamie cheating on his wife, who we learn is sick with something. She definitely seems like she's terminally ill. I know you and I talked about, we thought it might have been the rage virus.
Yeah, she might have been a carrier.
One moment she's okay. The next moment she doesn't remember who her son is. She thinks her dad is there. So I even wondered, did she have dementia even though she's younger? There's a mystery in her being ill. But at the party celebrating Spike, we see Jamie go off with this younger lady who's very attractive.
Yeah, and Spike catches him.
He witnesses it. He goes back to the house being the loyal son. And he has a conversation with a gentleman who seems like he's a family friend. And he learns that there is this doctor out on the mainland where all the infected are. When he confronts his father about Dr. Kelson, and his father's like, oh God, like not this, right? And he tells him this story about how when he was younger, it was him and a couple of buddies. They went to that part of the island and they see Dr. Kelson, and there's just so many dead bodies.
He's dragged bodies into an arrangement, like lines and lines of bodies lying on the ground.
And he turns around and he sees them and he waves to them. And this is the whole reason that he thinks Dr. Kelson is batshit crazy and essentially worthless.
This is evidence more of that sort of monoculture that they're having on that island, where all it takes is one person to say, oh, forget him. He's a kook. He's crazy. Stay away from him. And that becomes truth.
He's labeled an animal. While he's not infected, he's also an animal.
Mm-hmm.
We've established that it really seemed like Jamie was trying to push Spike to do this ritual, even though he's still too young. Then he lies about what happened so essentially Jamie can also be a hero. It's not just about Spike.
And you're right. It's like he's using Spike as a prop again to he's trying to impress that young woman that he's having an affair with.
This kind of really solidifies in Spike's mind that, one, there's a doctor who could help my mom. And basically, my dad has abandoned us. He definitely appears to be a mama's boy, for lack of a better term. And He loves her. He looks up to her. He wants to be there for her. He wants to cure her. So he gets this idea that he's going to go back to the mainland with his mom, who, I'm going to be honest, and Pablo, I'm sure you agree, she is not in the right space to be going on this mission.
No, she doesn't understand where they're going. And once they're out on the mainland, like, she freaks out because she knows they're not supposed to be there.
And there's this interesting thing that he does. He creates a diversion where he sets a building on fire, and he gets all the people who are guarding the door to go investigate. And then he sneaks out with his mom. And I really felt symbolically that was kind of him cleansing himself of this situation and setting himself on a new path.
Yeah, there are three things happening here. It's first of all, the act of defiance. Like, he's at odds with his father, even if his father doesn't realize it. You've mentioned the kindness where he feels like his mother deserves a chance and he's going to be the one to give it to her if no one else is going to. And then as part of the coming of age story, he's caught a glimpse of this larger world that was inaccessible to him before. And now he's going to venture out there, even if it's on his own, because there's more to see out there. There's more for him to understand. And obviously he's been lied to. So he wants the truth at the very least. He wants to know, for better or for worse, what the truth is of this potential doctor, what the truth is behind his mother's condition, and possibly also what the truth is behind the infected.
Now we've got Spike and Isla, his mother, and they are on the mainland, and they are in the shit, and they are taking a walk. And what does Spike have? Spike has some arrows. Doesn't seem like a lot. Like, I don't know, 15, 20.
And not a lot of confidence yet either. Like, it's he struggled on that first outing.
Struggle is being kind.
They should have died.
And it was a situation where any experienced adult would have been terrified. Having that alpha chase you in the final moments, that would be hard to recover from. I imagine you'd have a lot of nightmares.
That's a great point, because Jamie was scared. And when they come back to the celebration, it's all bravado. It's all like,
yes,
no, we had it. My son had it.
Yeah.
He was a little hero, just like his father. No, you guys were scared shitless until the moment you were back.
You totally shit your pants. But we learn at the beginning, no one will come to rescue you. You're on your own once you go to the main island. You can come back if you make it back.
That's a rule on both ends, by the way.
Yes.
So a rule from the community, and it's a rule from the outside world that has quarantined this island, that if anyone sets foot on that island, we're not coming for you. You're on your own. It's over.
So his 12-year-old self, he's packed apples and some arrows. This is not a well thought out plan, because Dr. Kelson looks like he's really far into the mainland. and so they go on this journey, and there are a lot of great moments that happen along the way. The first one I want to highlight with you is where they fall asleep in the abandoned, I don't know, was that a church? It was an abandoned area. It really echoed 28 Days Later.
It looked like just sacred grounds. I'm not sure what, like a monument, like an outdoor monument.
So they decide to spend the night there, which immediately, I'm like, you're an open area. And I had the same reaction in 28 Days Later. I was like, you all are sleeping out in the open? I was like, what's going on?
And they acknowledge it in that movie that they feel like they can't sleep.
But this time, Spike says that he's going to stay awake to stay guard, and he falls asleep, classically. And one of the ground dwellers / bloaters comes.
Wait. We have to mention the joke that happens here, where
Yes.
we've seen before that the bloater eats earthworms, like sucks
Yes.
them up off the dirt. And the bloater mistakes Spike's shoelace for an earthworm, which is a fun little sight gag. But, a little bit of levity we're getting in this very sad film.
That is probably the first moment of levity.
Yeah, I think it was.
And you're just thinking to yourself, okay, he has a couple of seconds since the ground dwellers made this mistake. We learned the next morning that it was actually his mom.
This was another reason why I thought she might be a rage carrier. Like, I thought that showed it, that she had something in her to like be violent.
It came across as rage in the way that she did it, because I did not get the impression that she's been trained. And maybe she was, I don't know. I didn't get that impression, but the way that she killed, there was such anger. And it could just be the anger of get away from my baby.
I don't know. There was something very intentional about that moment, though, how violent she gets. And I don't know what that's supposed to indicate if she was not a carrier.
Then the next big thing that they get into is they go up to this restaurant and they're being chased by runners. And so they're in another really bad situation that Spike's not quite prepared for. But they walk into this building and it has been infected with gas over years of being closed. I'm thinking, well, they're going to die from the gas, not necessarily being torn apart by runners, but by the gas. And then they get saved by Eric, who the best description would probably be a Swedish douchebag.
We've seen before this moment that there's been some small group of NATO officers that have been their patrol boat washed up ashore and they're stranded, which, as I said before, means that you are just shit out of luck. Nobody's coming to save you. Eric is the only survivor of his troop.
And they go through a tunnel before it gets down to just Eric, and that was a beautiful callback.
World's worst place to get a flat, huh?
Agreed.
Eric's just kind of like, well, the only shot we have is being together, but then he doesn't really want to go with them. And you kind of have this asshole who is helpful because he is trained and he has a gun.
He provides a very useful bit of exposition about what's happening in the outside world because he is somebody who still has an iPhone, mentions that a buddy of his is essentially like a delivery driver, like Uber Eats type person. This is probably the best moment of levity in the film when Eric shows a picture of his girlfriend back home and she is like Botoxed to hell. And Spike has no idea what's wrong with her face. It's so funny.
They're having a picnic, eating some apples in an open field.
Like you do.
So again, another callback to the first movie where there was some great levity between Jim and Selena and Hannah and Frank. He was necessary. They would not have survived. To your point, we learn that at least Sweden is definitely not infected.
I don't think this is necessarily a retcon of the ending of 28 Weeks Later.
I felt like it was.
It's not what people were expecting of a sequel after what happens at the end, where we see that the infection has reached the mainland of Europe and Paris specifically. And we thought essentially it's full-blown infection all worldwide, and we were going to get a much bigger story this time. So in the opening crawl of this film, we find out that the infection was beat back from continental Europe. Kudos to the French. Must have stopped there. They must have had a plan in place. But yeah, like this is confirmation that the rest of the world has moved on.
We already talked about the pregnant infected woman who has the baby, and that's a very interesting scene where Isla, it's almost like she doesn't even recognize that woman's infected, but they share this moment because the infected woman is in so much pain that they actually lock hands as the infected woman is having a baby. And then, of course, Isla takes it.
We haven't talked about it yet, but there's a lot of beauty in this film.
Yes.
And I think we'll talk about it more as we get to like the third act. But this is that first beautiful moment, right? Like Isla locking hands with the infected mother. And it defies logic, right? It doesn't make any sense. Spike is watching on in horror because he thinks his mother's about to get killed, essentially. Because by all logic, that's what should happen with any infected present. And no, it's more about just this bond of humanity and motherhood happening in that moment where it's such a monumental moment for any creature, for any living thing to give birth, right?
Yes.
And that's that first indicator of, I think, how important it is to regard them as humans.
That moment is indicative of just understanding, even as we look at countries that are warring with each other or races that do not get along, at the end of the day, we're all human.
Exactly that. Exactly that.
I sat back in that moment and I thought, is this a callback to 28 Weeks Later? Because they have not touched on the fact that we knew at least one of those children was a carrier. Is this baby the key to something? And obviously with where this baby continues to live at the end of this movie, which we'll get to, but are they going to come back to this? Is Alex Garland going to come back to this? And is it going to be an epic payoff?
There's something about this series that I don't think is interested in things like that at all. I don't think that they're veering into that sort of storytelling that's going to be about like salvation versus not. Like, I think it's like,
Yeah.
this is the reality. This is just, it would suck. And it would just be like, there's no cure, there's no nothing. It's just, you're going to live in it or you're not. And that's that.
I'll be honest, I didn't like that in the second movie. I didn't like that they introduced that.
It didn't need to be cliche and big. It doesn't need to be that. It's more about, you know, ruminating on what it means for these things to happen to humanity on this major of a scale, and then what's happening on the small scale while that's happening.
After Eric gets beheaded by the Alpha, they finally make it to Dr. Kelson. And that's really where this film takes the ultimate turn.
Yeah.
And I've seen some people who just didn't care for it because they wanted more of the 28 weeks later thriller.
You don't need more Last of Us. You need this message.
The first one was a message-driven film that happened to be set in an apocalypse. That's what this is too, but it's done through the lens of a coming-of-age story with Spike. And Spike coming to terms with the fact that we learn with Dr. Kelson that his mom had breast cancer that spread to her brain. But let's talk about Dr. Kelson, because this is a phenomenal apocalypse now. Colonel Kurtz nod. That's something that you would totally expect from Ray Fiennes. There were even some echoes to his role in The Menu, just with how meticulous he was.
Yeah.
And he had a process.
You're kind of primed for the possibility of him being a weirdo and just being kind of kooky and out there. No, he is a kind soul. And that matters so much in the context of this series and what's happening around them. To have somebody that's taken the moment to think that these are people and they're going to be treated as such even in death.
He's put all of these systems into place to protect himself from the infected while honoring the dead. We see essentially what kind of looks like a Christmas tree, but when you look at it, it looks like a celebration of death through these skulls, but really it's his way of honoring that relationship between life and death.
And it's specifically, he references memento mori, you know, remember death, and specifically remember that you die. Eventually, death comes for us all, which is something that Spike is terrified of because of his mother. He doesn't want his mother to die. This is the moment, and Dr. Kelson is able to kind of teach him, like give him that coming of age moment of teaching that it's okay. It's okay. We're all going to die, some of us better ways than others.
Yeah.
And, you know, your mother might be able to have an opportunity to die in a way that is peaceful. And that's the best anyone can hope for right now.
He's had all these lessons from his dad in the village on how to kill.
And not how to live.
And honor the people in your life.
There's a moment when Spike is crashing out about when he finds out his mother has cancer and it's terminal and there's nothing to be done. Like, he's just freaking out, trying to bargain and figure out, you know, some potential way out of this. And I think Isla kind of gives Dr. Kelson a look that's like, I'm okay with you sedating him because he needs it. And then I think in that look is also the acknowledgement that, like, you know, I'm okay going now. Like, you've told me what needs to happen. I'm okay with it. Right now is the right time when he's sedated.
What a beautiful nod to the moment where Selena gives Hannah the volume because she's about to be SA'd.
Good callback.
It's not just fan service. It's actually pivotal to this scene that Spike seems like he can't even move. I mean, he's motionless and there's nothing he can do to stop this walk that his mom is taking, which she will not be coming back from.
The most beautiful moment in the whole film. Again, a film full of beautiful moments. Spike is given the skull and told to find the best place. And Spike ascends the monument and takes her to the very top and puts her on top. And while he's up there, he can see off in the distance. And it's just this, you know, crescendo of music. It's just a beautiful moment.
You have these peaceful moments, but of course, Samson, he's still out there. Jason Momoa Samson. He ends up running after them. And again, Dr. Kelson is so prepared that he actually has this little underground place for them to hide in. But of course, Samson is an evolved infected, and he ends up almost killing Dr. Kelson, but it's actually Spike that saves him. There's this great moment of line delivery where Ray finds Dr. Kelson, looks at Spike and says, I think it's time for you to go home with the baby.
Yeah.
I think it's time for you to go. And you got to respect that, right? Because he has built a world for himself, and this kid has wrecked it.
It seems that in most recent post-apocalypse films, children just wreck everything.
This is the part where it kind of speeds up in the sense that we see Spike gets back to his village pretty quickly, really doesn't run into much, leaves the baby in a basket with a note to his dad.
And the baby's named Isla.
And he says to his dad, like, I'm not ready to come home. And when I am, I will.
What's interesting about that is how much Jamie was pushing him to become a man.
Yes.
And that note is he's a man.
Absolutely.
He's a 12-year-old man. He had to be one. And not because of anything you did, but because he decided he's a man now and he did the things that a man would do.
He's taking care of his family in the way that he wanted his dad to. Now we're pretty much at the end of the film. There's this scene where he's cooking some fish. Like, he actually used the bow to catch a fish and he's cooking it. And here comes some hunters and they end up taking the fish, but he's running. He's killing them. He's calm as he's doing it because now this is pretty normal to him. But he is outnumbered until
Jimmy's back.
Wait, sit here. Auntie, what's going on? Jimmy, sit still, keep quiet, and do not move from this spot.
In those final few minutes, we're shifting into Jimmy's story.
Yeah, that's what the next film's supposed to be.
We got a little bit of it at the beginning with the whole Teletubby and him escaping and just the madness of that cold open. His story is going to be pretty bonkers from what we saw.
He's there with his gang. They're all dressed up in jumpsuits, color-coded. They look like the Power Rangers. This is definitely an homage to the Power Rangers. Also a callback to the Teletubbies from that opening scene. And they just go to work. They go to work and they kill all those infected like it's nothing with like somersaults and flips. It's shot just like an episode of Power Rangers.
The tone is so different than the rest of the film. So different that I said to you, I felt like it was a studio note that they wanted to do sequel bait and end it on an exciting note. And you said the smartest thing to me. Say it to everyone.
Oh, well, I don't know if I'm going to say it because I don't remember. But I disagree that it's a Hollywood note because no Hollywood exec is going to say, end the film that way. Like, no one's going to say that because it's just so out of nowhere and so ridiculous.
I could just see them giving this note to Danny Boyle. Like, we need you to do this. We need you to set up the sequel and we need it to be exciting because this whole movie is like really heartfelt. And I could see him going, all right, here's how I'm going to do.
Okay, I believe that. I believe that. I could believe that.
We actually didn't talk about this. Jamie and Spike come across this infected who's been hung upside down. Jimmy is carved into this infected's back. There was a building that had a phrase on it about essentially God coming, and there was Jimmy. Is this a cult? Has Jimmy started his own religion?
Definitely a reaction to his father.
Both of these characters were abandoned by their fathers. We've just spent a lot of time talking about how Spike was forced to do things and felt abandoned by his dad's cheating. And obviously at the beginning, Jimmy's dad thought that this was Judgment Day and he allowed himself to be taken and he just left Jimmy on his own. This is very interesting and I'll be curious to see how Spike interacts with Jimmy. But then there is another reference here that I only understand because I saw the Netflix documentary. Being that you and I are American, we did not grow up with Jimmy Savile.
Nope.
Who was a DJ. He did Top of the Pops. He did Jimmy'll Fix It. And he was a beloved celebrity. We ended up finding out many years later.
It turns out everywhere he'd been, there'd been abuse.
So it seems that this Jimmy, in 28 years later, has emulated him because while the Teletubbies were on, So was Jimmy Savile. He was a part of the culture.
Yeah, and it's kind of like that concept of time has stopped.
The fact that Danny Boyle has admitted that that is part of who Jimmy is. Ooh, we're in for something.
That's very interesting. I mean, it's meant to put you at unease.
Spike might not exactly be in the best company, and we'll see how that goes. 28 years later, do you recommend it, Pablo?
Yes. I mean, see it in the theater. Yes. We need to support horror like this. It reminds me of what it felt like to see the first film for the first time and understand that this is something that we haven't seen in the genre before.
These types of films, they just don't happen that often anymore. And I feel very lucky that we're going to see more of them. And I am cautiously optimistic about Killian returning.
Same. Couldn't have said it better.